welcome to the Drama Free Living Podcast. It's Dennis and Lisa McIntee, and we're really glad you joined us today. We're kind of in this middle of a series, Lisa, of the 4 C's of teamwork, and it's been fascinating and a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we talked before about healthy teams, the importance of building healthy teams, and just the importance of having people around you and teams around you so you can go.
It's like go further.
Go further. Yeah, I was trying to go faster.
It's like
say that again.
So if you go alone, you can go fast.
Right.
But if you really, really want to go far, you have to do it through a team.
Through a team. And in order to have a good team, a healthy team, you need to have a couple. There are a few elements of healthy teams that are important. And the first one
we've got 4.
And we have 4 of them. The first one we talked about was care.
Yep.
Just people feeling that they're appreciated, they're respected, they're valued. We talked about the love languages, the 5 love languages. We talked about a teaspoon, nourishing, and the GPS framework.
It's been great. And at least I think the thing to kind of bring in here is this whole idea when we talked about appreciation, right, and really making people feel care, it really is a skill.
It is a skill.
And appreciation is different than gratitude, right? So gratitude is kind of like looking back at the past and being thankful, but appreciation is looking forward to the future inside of people and what's going to happen down the road and appreciating and extracting the value from it.
I remember talking about this before with you and the difference between appreciation and gratitude. And I think my personality is I lean toward gratitude all the time. I'm just naturally, I look around, I see things, and I have gratitude. It's something that comes easy for me. I think appreciation is a skill that I have to develop more. You do it a lot better.
Well, and it almost deals with like 3 different time frames, right? Because the past informs you. And you're great at sort of looking back at yesterday or 2 weeks ago or last year and letting it inform you and like creating this attitude of gratitude by looking back at the past. And then maybe I'm a little bit better at maybe being like future focused. And so I look ahead towards the future, and that kind of inspires me. And I think it's really easy. It's really important for people to understand there are 3 different time frames. You have the past, you have the future, and you have the present. And they have 3 different purposes, right? So the past informs. What did you learn? How are you grateful? The future inspires, right? What do you appreciate? What are you looking forward to? And then in the present is where value is created. Because what's fascinating, nobody's ever lived in the past. Right? Nobody's ever lived in the future. You've thought about the past. You've thought about the future.
You did live in the past.
Right. You did. Right. But today.
But you're not currently living in, hopefully you're not currently living in the past.
No, but it's like we're living right now today in the present. And today is the place that value is created.
And people need to know that they're valued and that they're appreciated. So creating that care and that appreciation in the present is very important because you have to have care in order to have conflict, healthy conflict.
There you go. So the second one is conflict. Now, sometimes people go, I care, and then I conflict. And I think we have to sort of change what conflict looks like and maybe change.
Conflict is a dirty word to me.
Yeah, but I think sometimes we have to just change the story.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I really care for somebody, and it's almost this idea, I care enough to confront.
I don't know that I really like that phrase.
Well, it's like I care.
It's a dirty phrase. Dirty word, dirty phrase.
Yeah, well, we're gonna kind of unpack it.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah, we're gonna do some of that because here's what happens like with conflict. Conflict typically happens when stakes are really high. Right? The higher the stakes, the greater the chance for conflict. Emotions run strong.
Right.
Right? People really, really care. They're very emotional about the outcome. Right? And then opinions vary. Sounds a lot like our team, doesn't it? Yeah. That sounds a lot like our marriage.
Sounds like for our family too.
Yeah. Right. It's like these 3 sort of characteristics are what sort of causes this conflict. And here's what we want to kind of get across to people is that you're having conflict because you care. A team that tells me they don't have conflict, I just want to know does nobody care around here? But it's like changing the mindset and what that really looks like. So when we say conflict, we're not saying yelling, screaming, throwing shoes at each other.
No. And Brene Brown, she's got this famous phrase, and it's clarity is kindness. And I'm not sure if she's the one that originated it, but that's truly what conflict is it's creating clarity, and clarity is kindness.
Well, and we're going to talk next on the next podcast about how to create clarity, but almost see that like the bridge to clarity is through conflict.
Right. And there is healthy conflict, and then there's unhealthy conflict. We're going to talk first about unhealthy conflict and just what that is.
Well, and before we do that, I know you did a throwback to the 90s. I'm going to do a throwback to the 80s.
Okay.
So and during the 80s, we were in this big conflict. Let's think about it, right? It was like, This was the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
And you and I are children of the 80s.
Yeah.
Right? And so I remember, like, do you remember like getting under your desk?
I remember getting under our desk and covering our heads because it was a nuclear threat.
Right.
Like getting under a desk is going to help you in a nuclear threat.
But I still have these memories of this and going through this, like, so Ronald Reagan, and he was the master, right? He really sort of brought I don't want to get political here, but he really was a master politician and a master statesman, and really a master at building teams and building relationships. And this is what he said. He said, peace is not the absence of conflict. Right? So sometimes we think, hey, we have peace because we don't have conflict. He said, peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means.
Oh, that's good.
Right? And it was like,
wise man.
And you think about like what happened there is that, there was no war, right? He was able to bring about peace, right? He was able to bring it about by peaceable means. Mm-hmm. And I thought, man, that is a great example. There was this conflict, but it didn't go all the way to war. Right. We had a conflict, and that's what we want to kind of help people with. Is like
we were able to resolve the conflict in a positive way.
Right, and it's like, hey, you're going to have conflict on your teams. And so we just don't want to go to a war.
Right. Because going to a war, that's just taking it too far.
And it's almost this idea of let's harness the energy of conflict, because there is like an energy to it. And sometimes leaders, like, they don't want conflict, they want harmony. But here's sort of what harmony really looks like. Harmony is not both of us singing the same note. It's you're singing a note and I'm singing a note, and it's going together.
That's
right?
Great.
Yeah, so it's not
not 3 or 4 people singing a note. It could be a quartet.
There you go. And it's not necessarily everybody singing the same note, but it's singing notes that go together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great example of teamwork. That's a great example of conflict. We have different personalities, different perspectives, and all these different things, and people are going to think different. And we value their thinking and kind of pull it out of them during these kind of times of conflict.
I love that.
Yeah,
and it's not a discordant sound.
Yeah, it's really becomes harmony. Mm-hmm. And in the best music, it's harmonious. The best teams are harmonious.
Yeah, think of how boring our music would be if it was all one note together. Every instrument was playing the same note at the same time.
Well, and think about like teams that are just playing the same note, right? And almost like, gosh, I don't even know if I want to say this on the podcast. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to say it, and Kate can just cut it out, right? If she wants to say it, right? But it's almost like sometimes, here's the thing, right? We go out into the world and we just hire people that are just like us,
right?
Right? We hire all these people that are just like us, and it's like, man, it's like marrying your cousin, right? And then all your kids become idiots, right? And I don't know if maybe we'll let Kate cut that out. Okay, so if it makes the cut, it's because Kate wasn't listening. No, but it's almost like when we hire people that are just like us,
yeah,
right? It's like I don't want to hire anybody like me. Right? It's like, gosh, we only need one.
You like to work with people that are like you because you think the same, you work the same, and you can go really fast, but it is very flat.
Right. It's not going to be harmony. Mm-hmm. And so let's kind of dive into like what conflict looks like, because I think for this to really work well, we've got to change the mindset around what conflict looks like.
Absolutely. Unhealthy conflict is completely different than healthy conflict. Healthy conflict is that harmony.
Yeah.
Unhealthy conflict. So 85% of all U.S. employees regularly experience workplace conflict, unhealthy conflict. And that costs about 3 hours weekly of lost work time.
And think about all the money that's lost because we don't know how to do conflict correctly.
That's 85% of all U.S. employees.
That's a big number.
That's a big number.
No, listen, and if you're listening in other parts of the world, it's probably very similar to what we have in the States, right? We just happen to be based here in the States, but I know we've got listeners from all over the world, and we're pretty sure it might not be 85% for you.
But it's probably higher than you think.
It probably is, absolutely.
Absolutely. And you think about it, if you are the business owner, and 85% of your people are experiencing unhealthy conflict.
Or you're the team leader.
Or the team leader or the team manager.
Yeah.
or even a member on the team. So if that costs somebody on your team 3 hours because they're having to deal with this unhealthy conflict, somebody's going to have to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to get the job done. Projects are going to drop, and you're going to have a lot of extra time that you're paying out that you're not getting useful work out of. It's just wasted work because of unhealthy conflict.
I'm going to use my favorite word here. It's inefficient.
It's inefficient.
My
Absolutely.
favorite. I love that word.
So signs of unhealthy conflict.
Right.
You know your conflict is unhealthy, and these, to a certain extent, are just common sense.
But common sense is not common.
But common sense is not common, especially if you're not walking around aware. If you're not walking around aware.
Right. And I think part of the really sort of the foundation that we really wanted to kind of bring this to the forefront is that there are a lot of leaders that are unaware. They're just not.
They have no idea what's going on in their team.
Absolutely.
They have no idea. They are maybe in their office and they are not with their people.
So it kind of brings me to, I remember this one time, I'm not going to share the industry, right? Because we're fairly well known in certain industries, but I'll never forget this particular, CEO told me there was no drama in his organization. And I was like, I got to see this, right? It's like, I got to see this, right? And so I remember visiting with him the day, and I realized why he thought there was no drama, right? Because he would park his car, he would walk through the door, walk past the receptionist, walk into his office, and close the door. 5 o'clock, showed up, he'd open that door, walk through the lobby, and got back in his car. And I was like, hey, dude, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's there.
Right.
And sometimes as leaders, it's like, we call this playing the ostrich, right? Kind of the Sergeant Schultz. I'm kind of dating myself here, right?
Oh, my goodness. Hogan's Heroes.
I know. I see nothing. I hear nothing, right?
Okay, that show babysat me growing up.
That and MASH. Those are my shows.
I
know you didn't like MASH.
No, I liked
we're
MASH.
Do
it was more of a guy's show.
We're doing a podcast on MASH.
On Radar O'Reilly.
We're bringing Mary Grace in and just interview her.
Anyway,
moving forward, yes.
So unhealthy conflict, signs of unhealthy conflict, decreasing productivity.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't see that until the end of the month or year end. But if you are in it in the middle, you can you can sense it, you can see it. Declining engagement. That also that you have to be with everyone to be able to see who's engaging and who's not engaging.
Yeah.
Lack of respect.
Wow.
Yeah. Hostile body language. So that could be things like, it just could be frowning, walking around. If all of your people are frowning and if everyone on your team is frowning, it's probably not just a bad day on everyone's part. It could be unhealthy conflict.
Right. And that goes back to that covert overt, right? There's a covert way, right, to communicate and an overt. Like the overt way are the words that I say, but the covert are the rolling of the eyes or the tone of voice. I could say, oh, great job, Lisa. Pff, yeah, great job. Right?
And we all know what that means.
Right. Yeah. I said great job, but I didn't mean great job. And so, and here's what we want to kind of get across here is that when there is a discrepancy, the covert always wins.
Covert always wins.
And as a leader, go with the body language, go with the tone of voice, because that's what
that's the true meaning.
That's the true meaning, right? And here's the thing, as leaders, it's like we got to be aware of it. We got to look out and look at our teams and kind of read some of this.
And a good point too is you as a leader, double check your body language, because sometimes we walk around with a frown and we don't even know it. And maybe we're not actually unhappy, but we just kind of have that cemented on our face because try to crack your lips on the corners just a little
sometimes
bit.
We don't
smile.
Yeah, we don't even realize it. I remember this has probably been 5 or 6 years ago, and Melissa came in and she said, "Dad, you got angry eyes." And I'm like, what are you talking about, right? But she could just like my body language, and it's something I've really had to work on. I didn't even realize I had angry eyes, but she kind of read.
You were probably thinking intensely about something.
I was probably working on a problem, thinking through something. She goes, "Man, you got angry eyes. What's wrong?"
So, and then another way to know signs of unhealthy conflict is off-track meetings. People take sides and the meetings kind of go sideways, and then also high absenteeism. And those are just some basic signs, some basic ideas of, I might just have some unhealthy conflict in my organization.
Yeah, so those are great warning signs. And here's kind of the key thing that, and almost like the mindset that we really want to get across to people, is this whole idea is that when things like happen, right? The only thing you really can give feedback on are like what you hear and what you say, what you see.
Okay.
Right, so I see behavior, right? I hear words. And here's sort of the key phrase. And it's going to be a little hard, a little challenging, maybe a little rough. And it's this idea of whatever you don't address, you endorse.
Right.
Which means as leaders, we can't go into the blame game, right? If we see these things, we see the behavior and we don't address it, we actually endorse it, right? We hear the certain words and language and we don't address it, we actually endorse it. And then it gets even worse. Because then we'll go home and we won't address it with our team, but we'll go home and complain to our spouse about it. And the key phrase here is that you are not allowed to complain about what you permit.
Yeah.
And especially as leaders of teams, you're the one that's giving permission to this, right? So we can't step back and sort of like blame our team that we're having all this unhealthy conflict when, gosh, at the end of the day, it's like we got to look at the mirror and look at ourselves, right? And here's part of the point is because as leaders, we go through a lot of like maybe frustrations, right? And we just kind of tolerate it. And what we want to like kind of get across today is that, the quality of your team are in the amount of things you tolerate, right? It's like you tolerate it. And some of us, we just need to lower our toleration level so that we sort of go and address some of these issues. Right? But if we step in to try to address it, here's sort of three enemies, right, is like trying to win.
Right.
Right? Say, hey, I want to win an argument. And at the end of the day, as a leader, it's like I'd rather win a heart and lose an argument. I'd rather win a heart than win an argument, right? Because I can win an argument.
You're good at winning arguments.
I'm pretty darn good at it.
You're a good debater.
I am, and I like it.
I know you
right?
love it. You love it.
I know, but then
it energizes you.
It does, but then it's like it's a little disappointing sometimes because I've even had team members just say, "Hey, I just don't have that much energy." It's like they just kind of throw up their hands. Like after 10 minutes of debate, they're like, "I've just run out of energy." And I, as a leader, I know I've got to be careful because I got a lot of energy for that, right? And it's like so trying to win. And this the whole idea is like go after the heart, not the argument. And then when people sort of like try to do it for revenge.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to get back at you.
Right.
Right. And then the other idea is that they place peace over clarity. Because sort of Brene Brown's thinking that, kindness, clarity is kindness. Right. Right. And so when you sort of place peace above clarity. Right. And the goal really is clarity. So the goal
and then
of conflict is clarity.
Is that truly peace?
It really isn't, right?
No.
Because you still have all that residual.
Right. Somebody's not going to be at peace.
Yeah. So listen, with all that said, like, tell us what is healthy conflict?
Okay. So healthy conflict, ultimately, healthy conflict is when two differing ideas come together. And that it's exactly what you said. Healthy conflict is harmony. It could be 2-part, 3-part, 4-part harmony.
Love it.
As in music.
Yeah.
And they're all different, but they come together and they work together. And they're completely different, but it works. And healthy conflict, it fosters creativity.
Yeah.
When different ideas come together, think of how creative a piece of music is, an orchestral piece is, with all of the different instruments and then not only do we have multiple instruments, but we also have each instrument is playing something different. And it's fascinating because there's so much creativity in that. And that is essentially different ideas, different notes, different instruments coming together, being completely different, but fusing together, and it's beautiful.
It's a great word picture, right? Your team is like an orchestra. Hey, I think there's a book in that.
You're going to do something.
I have already
I see it in your eyes.
Yeah, it's a book. It's coming. So yeah, just tell Kate, put on her seatbelt. It's coming. Okay.
Something else on healthy conflict is it encourages a deeper look at the issues.
Okay, talk more about that. Like,
so we've got different issues, and I see this issue, and you see this, and we're like, wait a minute, I never even saw that. Well, let's dig down to it because maybe there's something there. There could be nothing there, but maybe there is something there that could be a problem up ahead, something that we need to address. So it alerts us also for a need maybe for better guidelines and better clarity, because maybe I think I'm doing a project and I'm running with the project that was given me, and come to find out I'm doing it wrong.
And we're going to really cover that in the next episode, right? Because how many people are demotivated, right, when your leader sort of brainstorms in public?
Uh-huh.
Now I know, thankfully I've never done that before.
Yep. But you're not one to do that at all.
Well, in a little bit, it's like, it's a fatal flaw, really. Kind of this whole idea of brainstorming in public. And so as leaders, we're going to, in the next podcast, we're going to kind of dive deep into that. And we've got a great tool.
And then another way for healthy conflict is it shows area of passion and commitment. So if someone is really passionate about something, put them on that.
Yeah.
Because they have the energy, they have the motivation to deal with it.
Well, and it's this whole idea of that you conflict because you care. Mm-hmm. Right? Because honestly, Lisa, there are things that I don't care about, and I think you want me to care about them.
I do, desperately.
Yeah, but it's like I really don't care. And I think you'd like a debate sometimes, or I think team members would like a debate, and I'm like, yeah, whatever you want. That's something I don't really care about. Right?
So how do we do healthy conflict? One way is give everyone a voice and a chance to be heard, right?
Okay.
No idea is a bad idea, because even bad suggestions can spark creative conversations.
I love it.
Yeah, so there's not any bad ideas. And instilling the thought in your team that there are no bad ideas. They're just different ideas.
Well, and it's almost like, you can take maybe, I don't want to say bad idea, but like an idea that doesn't work and sort of turn it on its head, and it works, right? It's like how they created, Teflon is the word I'm looking for, but it's like the Velcro.
Oh, right.
Right? It was like, that was just, they just turned that idea around, right?
And created Velcro.
Yeah, and created Velcro. And it was like, it was actually started out as a bad idea, and then it became, oh my gosh, right?
And now I can't live without Velcro, personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another one, step in when necessary so issues don't linger. That's how to have healthy conflict.
Yeah, and especially as the leader, I think as a leader, when you have two team members in conflict, part of your job is to step in and not let it fester. And some of the best leaders are the best referees.
And part of the job is to let it ride out so there can be these deep conversations and these deep ideas, and knowing your team well enough to know when it gets to the point where it could cause harm.
Well, and here's the thing, Lisa, is I was just with one of our clients, a large financial institution, and the situation, I really told the senior leader, it's like, you actually created this because you knew this was going on with two of your senior team members. And I said, why did you not bring them in your office, sit the three of you down, and just referee and go through some conflict so that you get clarity?
Yeah.
And really, a leader kind of creates that. And it goes back to this idea, whatever you don't address, you endorse.
Mm-hmm. So another way to encourage healthy conflict is to encourage different viewpoints. Like we said, I think it was the previous podcast or the one before that, everyone comes from a different background, from a different perspective. Yeah. Everyone has a different life experience. So therefore, you're going to have a different viewpoint. And encourage that. Encourage the individuality in your team. Create atmospheres of trust and safety. This is a safe place. There is no bad idea. This is an area, this is a place, this is a group where you feel like it's okay to bring something, even if it's not all put through to the end. It could be the start or the butt of an idea.
Yeah, and that's why you have to add that foundation of care, because it really creates that, atmosphere of safety. And when people feel safe, they're going to step in and have some of the hard conversations. And
when you're having these conversations, it's focusing on the ideas and not the individuals.
And almost this idea, hey, let the best idea win. And sometimes one way to do that is like, hey, what's best for our customer or our client?
Or best for our team.
Yeah, or best for our team, right? It's like, hey, what's best for the end user who we're serving?
And when you're doing that, you need to stay calm. So if you're focusing on the ideas, not the individual, and you're staying calm through it. We're not letting our energy level get so put through the roof that somebody's going to blow up.
Yeah, and this is why, our particular new course on emotional mastery, right? We kind of deep dive into that. And that's why it's so important for leaders. And we'll put a link to that course because that would really help a lot of leaders just learn how do you manage yourself first before you because if you don't manage yourself first, you're not going to step in and manage your team.
Absolutely. Practice active listening
Okay.
That's don't interrupt. So active listening means your brain.
I'm glad I never do that.
Your brain is engaged in what the other person is saying at the moment. You're not in the process of working through a response.
Okay, this is the hardest thing for me. I just got to tell you.
It is tough. You're not working through a response. You're sitting there in what the other person is saying. You're not interrupting. You're waiting until they're all done, and then you can respond.
I thought you were waiting for them to like just take a quick breath so you can jump right in.
Or not breathe at all. The next
Moving
one
forward
is model vulnerability and empathy.
Yeah, I love it.
Admit your mistakes. Understand someone else's perspective.
Yep, I love it.
Know when to stop and table it for later.
You know, and that's a good point, right? You don't have to deal with everything right now.
Sometimes it's better to stop, put it on pause because you've worked through all of the possible solutions, or you're just flat out tired or hungry. And if you're tired or hungry, or it's the end of the day. So for Dennis and I, when we have any kind of a conversation, we need to not have it after 7 p.m. because it's probably going to blow up. I mean, it just is.
Yeah, because you get really cranky after 7 p.m.
Actually, we both do.
Yeah. No, it's more me.
I do too, but
well, it's because tired eyes don't see well.
That's right.
You know, they don't. Now, listen, this does not give leaders a license to say, oh, I'm just going to table it for later and then play the ostrich.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. So, take it with a grain of salt there.
And we have a tool. We have the values clarifier.
Love it. So, yeah. So really what this is this is an idea where you go out and sort of answer 2 questions for your team. Mm-hmm. And it really kind of just tells people about you and how you like to do conflict and how you communicate expectations. And the 2 key questions are, hey, here's what you can do to be a hero to me. Mm-hmm. And we love that language because, everybody has a superpower. Everybody wants to be a superhero. So here's what you could do to be a hero to me. And the second one is, here's what drives me crazy.
And these are super important when you are having conflict or you're having different ideas or differing opinions and you're throwing ideas around and trying to come up with what's best for your team, is to know what drives your colleague crazy.
Yeah.
And how you can be a hero.
Right. And even in times of conflict, like what drives you crazy during conflict? Because different people approach conflict differently.
Yeah.
And it really kind of like helps people understand you so that you communicate better. So Lisa, we're going to put that particular thinking tool in the show notes. So please just go download it. It's our gift to you. So we want to be a blessing to you.
Absolutely. And the last thing I have would be how to work with high unhealthy conflict personalities. It's just a couple things.
Okay, go for it.
So if you're stuck with someone and they are a high unhealthy conflict person, it's pretty interesting because Harvard Business Review calls these people conflict entrepreneurs.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. I guess it's a shorter way to say that they like to stir up the drama all the time. First thing would be to identify them quickly.
Okay.
Understand, especially if you're the leader, you want to identify who those people are. Yep. You've got someone, so you realize that your team has unhealthy conflict.
Yep.
Earlier we talked about 85% of employees live in an environment or work in an environment where there's unhealthy conflict, and it's costing 3 hours of time on a work week. Well, so what do we do there? Find the people that are the conflict entrepreneurs. And the way you can find them is they're the ones that are pretty quick to accuse and to communicate rumors. They're the ones that are pretty quick to tattletale, but you can feel it. Yep. You can feel them before you see them. You just know these guys have bad vibes. They're just stirring up trouble.
Yep.
But you don't know that until you're with your team or with your organization and not shutting yourself up in the office. And then spend time with them because everybody wants to be heard. Sometimes it could be a bad day or a bad season, and sometimes they could just need therapy. And sometimes they just need to be released to their bigger future and no longer work for that company. But first, spend time with them and find out. Let them share their griefs and allow them to be heard because this could be something that could be resolved. And then the last thing is to help them redirect their energy. So if they are stirring up trouble, allow them to be part of the solution. Help them to, if they are so passionate about what's going on, empower them to be part of the solution to help correct it. And then hopefully you can turn them around and they're not going to be high conflict individuals, and you can go back to having a healthier team.
Yeah, I love this, Lisa. And hopefully, our listeners have sort of got a different idea on what conflict is, because I think, your mindset determines your behavior.
Absolutely.
And so really getting the right mindset. And I'm kind of just going through and thinking through, for me, one of the big takeaways is this whole idea of whatever I don't address, I endorse. And, I'm the one who said it, and I immediately had a thought, I need to go address this.
Because it could be something as simple as, this person always puts this up in Slack and I wish they would send it by this way instead, or they don't let me know. They don't tag me so I don't get alerted. It could be really simple things. Yeah. And if you approach them and say, hey, would you mind?
Yeah, and just step into that. That's a way to step into the conflict. So Lisa, for you, what's your takeaway?
My takeaway is that conflict is good, even though I don't like the word conflict, because it truly is harmony, because there are multiple instruments and multiple notes being played, and it actually is beautiful. And that's what makes life beautiful.
And that's the picture that we want you to have for conflict. So it's been fun. If you would love the Values Clarifier, we'd be so blessed to just share it with you. So it'll be there in the show notes. Just download it for you. And Lisa, it's been fun. I think our work is done now.
I think it's done.
Yep. So we'll see you next time on the Drama Free Living Podcast.